When we talk about ultimatums in the realm of international relations, we are not talking about casual suggestions or offhand warnings. An ultimatum is a deliberate, high stakes act. It is the kind of statement that carries with it the weight of potential consequences, and in the case of a 30-day window delivered to one of the most formidable military alliances in the world, that weight is enormous. The mere existence of such a timeline immediately introduces urgency, forcing governments and military planners into a space where hesitation can be dangerous and missteps can have cascading effects. Unlike routine diplomatic negotiations, which often unfold over months or years, this ultimatum demands immediate consideration. The clock is not a metaphor, it is a ticking reality, pressing every actor involved to consider not just the potential threats, but the timing of their responses, the optics of their decisions, and the geopolitical ramifications that could follow. Each day, each hour, each moment is compressed into a window where mistakes cannot easily be corrected, and where the margin for error is virtually non existent. The very nature of a 30-day ultimatum is designed to create psychological pressure, not just strategic pressure. In the minds of those receiving the message, the sense of urgency is inescapable. It is a challenge, wrapped in a timeline, a kind of calculated tension that forces decision makers to confront the stark reality that their choices, or lack thereof, will be scrutinized, judged, and, more importantly, acted upon by an adversary who is prepared to capitalize on hesitation. This is not merely a test of military capability, it is a test of political courage, diplomatic acumen, and the ability to manage both public perception and internal governmental debate. Leaders of nations that are part of the alliance must weigh the cost of immediate action against the dangers of waiting, all while the world watches, all while the clock ticks inexorably toward zero. Timing in this context is not incidental. The decision to impose a 30-day limit is a strategic maneuver in itself, a way to compress the decision-making cycle, to force rapid calculation, and to increase the stakes of every meeting, memo, and intelligence briefing. In ordinary circumstances, alliances of this size are deliberative, consensus-driven, and often slow-moving, precisely because of the complexity of their memberships. They represent multiple nations, multiple legal frameworks, and multiple public expectations. But by creating an arbitrary, externally imposed deadline, the sender of this ultimatum disrupts the usual rhythm of deliberation. It introduces the possibility that decisions will be made under pressure, that compromises may be rushed, and that errors in judgment could be magnified simply because there is insufficient time for careful coordination. The 30-day timeline is a kind of temporal weapon, one that aims to exploit the natural inertia and caution that such alliances often exhibit, converting those normally stabilizing qualities into potential vulnerabilities. Beyond the immediate pressure, the ultimatum also functions as a tool of signaling and perception management. Every actor in the global arena, whether a direct member of the alliance or an observer from afar, is forced to take note. The timeline is a signal, not only to the alliance itself, but to the world at large. This is a matter that will not be ignored, deferred, or diluted. There is an implicit challenge embedded within the statement. How will you respond? Will you act in unity, or will you fracture under the weight of your own internal disagreements? Will you respond with a show of strength, or will hesitation signal weakness? The pressure is therefore not just internal to the alliance, it is external. A message crafted to influence not only those directly involved, but also other international actors who may be calculating their own next steps. The ultimatum becomes a kind of strategic chess move, forcing multiple boards of calculation at once. The internal board of the alliance, the external board of neighboring nations, and the global board of observers and potential opportunists. Complicating matters further is the unpredictable nature of public perception. Unlike closed-door negotiations, this ultimatum exists in a world of media coverage, instant reporting, and social amplification. Citizens of member nations are inevitably aware, directly or indirectly, that their governments face a pressing challenge. Leaders must manage not only the strategic and tactical responses, but also the narratives that emerge from these deliberations. Every statement, every delay, every action or inaction will be analyzed for evidence of resolve or weakness. The psychological pressure is immense. The ultimatum operates not just as a direct threat to military capabilities, but as a catalyst for political anxiety, a force multiplier that extends its reach far beyond the formal boundaries of the alliance. History teaches us that ultimatums rarely operate in isolation. They are often part of broader strategic campaigns designed to test resolve, gauge reaction times, and manipulate the perception of strength. A 30-day ultimatum is particularly dangerous because it combines immediacy with ambiguity. There is certainty in the deadline, but there is uncertainty in the consequences of compliance or defiance. The recipients must weigh numerous scenarios. Should they respond militarily, diplomatically, or through a combination of both? How will an immediate response be perceived domestically and internationally? Could a delay be interpreted as weakness, inviting further aggression? Could an overreaction escalate the situation into outright conflict? Every choice carries risk, and every risk is magnified by the compressed time frame. Moreover, alliances of this scale are not monolithic. They are composed of nations with differing interests, priorities, and threat perceptions. Some members may advocate for a strong, immediate show of force. Others may push for cautious diplomacy and extended negotiations. The ultimatum, by imposing a fixed 30-day window, forces these differing perspectives into a constrained dialogue, heightening the potential for internal conflict. Unity, which is the alliance's greatest strength, becomes a fragile balancing act. The pressure to project cohesion externally while managing internal disagreement adds another layer of complexity. Decisions cannot simply reflect the preferences of a single nation. They must account for the strategic, political, and operational realities of multiple actors, all under the ticking clock of this ultimatum. The strategic risks are also compounded by the nature of modern warfare and international relations. In today's environment, rapid technological developments, cyber operations, and the speed of information dissemination mean that the consequences of any misstep are amplified. A single miscalculated move, whether in a military, economic, or informational domain, can trigger a cascade of reactions that may be impossible to fully control. The 30-day ultimatum is therefore not only a test of political will, but also a test of strategic agility. It demands that the alliance operate with both precision and foresight, anticipating not just immediate responses, but the potential ripple effects across multiple theaters of influence. At the heart of this pressure is the concept of credibility. The issuer of the ultimatum is relying on the perception that the alliance will feel compelled to respond decisively, that delay or inaction will be interpreted as weakness. Every member state is acutely aware that the credibility of the alliance is on the line. The effectiveness of its deterrent posture, the reliability of its commitments, and the trust among its members all hinge on the perception that it can act cohesively under pressure. Failure to respond effectively within the 30-day window could undermine decades of strategic positioning and embolden other actors who may have been watching the situation unfold, waiting for signs of hesitation or disunity. In essence, the 30-day ultimatum is a concentrated exercise in high-stakes pressure. It compresses time, magnifies risk, and challenges both the strategic and psychological capacities of the alliance. It tests not only military readiness, but also political coordination, diplomatic skill, and the resilience of collective decision-making processes. The stakes are enormous, and the margin for error is narrow. Each day that passes, each deliberation that occurs under this fixed timeline carries weight that would be almost unimaginable under ordinary circumstances. This is why such an ultimatum cannot be treated lightly. It is designed to provoke urgency, to test cohesion, and to exploit both the internal dynamics of the alliance and the broader strategic environment in which it operates. The consequences of mishandling a situation like this extend beyond the immediate parties involved. A fractured alliance is not merely a tactical or political issue. It is a global concern. The ripple effects can destabilize regions, embolden opportunistic actors, and alter the balance of power in ways that reverberate for years, if not decades. This makes the urgency of the ultimatum not just a matter of immediate military calculation, but a broader question of international stability and security. Each decision, each action, or inaction becomes a test not just of national resolve, but of the very principles that underpin collective defense and global order. Ultimately, the 30-day ultimatum is a reminder that international relations are rarely abstract exercises in diplomacy. They are urgent, immediate, and consequential. They are high-stakes games where time is weaponized and where the cost of miscalculation can be extraordinary. The pressure imposed by such a timeline forces every actor within the alliance to confront uncomfortable truths, to make rapid calculations, and to act with both caution and courage. The risk is real, the urgency is palpable, and the clock is ticking. In this compressed temporal space, every decision carries amplified significance. Every hesitation carries heightened risk, and the very cohesion of the alliance is put to a test that may define the course of global events for years to come. When discussing the potential ramifications of any international threat, especially one delivered with such precision and urgency as a 30-day ultimatum, the concept of cohesion becomes not just important, but existential. Alliances, by their very nature, are delicate constructs. They are built on mutual trust, shared objectives, and the understanding that each member will act in concert when faced with challenges that could jeopardize their collective security. The strength of such an alliance does not reside solely in the sum of its military hardware, the sophistication of its intelligence networks, or the economic power of its member states. Rather, its true strength lies in the ability of its members to act as a unified front, to maintain discipline, and to uphold commitments even under pressure. When cohesion falters, the alliance becomes vulnerable in ways that no amount of strategic planning or technological superiority can fully compensate for. This is especially true when the alliance is confronted with an ultimatum that has been carefully calibrated to test its resolve. A threat with a defined time frame, 30 days in this case, is designed to compress the normal processes of consultation, deliberation, and consensus building. Alliances of this scale are complex organisms. They are not monolithic. They are made up of multiple sovereign states, each with its own domestic political pressures, strategic priorities, and historical perspectives. In normal times, this diversity can be a source of strength, bringing a wide range of experiences and capabilities to bear. In times of urgent crisis, however, that same diversity can become a liability if not managed with clarity and purpose. The challenge is not merely to respond to the ultimatum, but to respond together in a way that preserves unity and demonstrates to both allies and adversaries that the alliance is not fractured, hesitant, or susceptible to manipulation. The cohesion of an alliance is at its core a reflection of trust. Trust that each member will honor its commitments, that each member will align its actions with shared strategic objectives, and that disagreements, when they arise, will be resolved in ways that do not undermine the collective response. Trust is fragile, and it can be eroded quickly in moments of crisis. The imposition of a 30-day ultimatum introduces intense pressure on that trust. Some members may feel compelled to advocate for immediate, forceful action, while others may counsel restraint, caution, or a more diplomatic approach. If these differences are allowed to fester or become public, they can create the appearance of disunity, which is precisely the vulnerability the ultimatum seeks to exploit. Cohesion, therefore, is not an abstract concept. It is a strategic imperative. It is what transforms an alliance from a collection of individual nations into a credible unified actor on the global stage. Historical precedent reinforces the importance of cohesion. Time and again, alliances that have managed to maintain unity under pressure have been able to deter aggression, de-escalate crises, and preserve stability. Conversely, when alliances fracture or allow internal disputes to dictate their responses, the consequences can be catastrophic. The effectiveness of collective defense is predicated on the belief that the alliance will act as one. If that belief is undermined, whether through hesitation, inconsistent messaging, or internal conflict, the deterrent effect is weakened. Potential adversaries, observing cracks in unity, may be emboldened to escalate their actions, calculate new risks, or exploit divisions for strategic gain. In this sense, cohesion is both a defensive mechanism and a form of strategic leverage. Cohesion also extends beyond the purely operational or military dimensions of an alliance. It encompasses diplomatic coordination, public messaging, economic alignment, and even intelligence sharing. Each of these components reinforces the others. If one aspect falters, the entire structure can be compromised. For example, if member states present inconsistent narratives to the public or to international media, it can create confusion, undermine credibility, and weaken the perception of solidarity. Similarly, if intelligence is not effectively shared or analyzed in a coordinated fashion, decision making may be slowed or compromised, creating openings for adversaries to act. The ultimatum, by imposing a strict temporal constraint, amplifies the importance of these interconnected elements. Cohesion must be operationalized across every dimension of the alliance to ensure a coherent, credible response. Another critical element of cohesion is the ability to balance national interests with collective obligations. In alliances, there is always a tension between what benefits a single member state and what serves the collective good. Domestic political pressures, economic considerations, and historical relationships can all influence how a country perceives threats and priorities. Maintaining cohesion requires mechanisms for negotiation, compromise, and mutual reassurance. It requires a willingness among member states to sometimes subordinate immediate national preferences for the sake of collective security. The 30-day ultimatum tests this principle in its most intense form. The compressed time frame forces members to quickly align their priorities, resolve disputes, and commit to a unified strategy. Any hesitation or failure to reconcile differences could be interpreted as weakness, both internally and externally. The perception of cohesion is as important as cohesion itself. An alliance that projects unity deters potential aggression even in the absence of immediate action. This is why public statements, joint exercises, coordinated policy announcements, and visible demonstrations of solidarity are all integral to the concept of cohesion. In the context of a 30-day ultimatum, these acts of signaling take on amplified significance. They reassure both member states and the broader international community that the alliance remains steadfast. They convey to adversaries that any miscalculation or attempt to exploit perceived divisions will be met with a consistent, collective response. In essence, cohesion becomes a tool of strategic communication, reinforcing deterrence while buying critical time for deliberation. The leadership within the alliance also plays a pivotal role in maintaining cohesion. Strong leadership is needed to navigate disagreements, mediate competing priorities, and present a coherent strategy that can be endorsed by all members. Leadership must manage both the internal dynamics of the alliance and the external pressures created by the ultimatum. This requires clarity of vision, decisiveness, and an ability to communicate effectively across multiple levels of government and military command. Leaders must also remain aware of the psychological dimensions of cohesion, understanding that uncertainty, fear, and mistrust can quickly erode unity if not addressed proactively. In addition to internal dynamics, cohesion is influenced by the broader geopolitical environment. Allies are not operating in isolation. They exist within a global system where other powers are observing, calculating, and preparing to act based on perceived vulnerabilities. A unified alliance is a stabilizing force, signaling to the world that collective security mechanisms are credible and reliable. A fractured alliance, by contrast, creates opportunities for adversaries to exploit, increasing the likelihood of escalation, regional instability, or even conflict. The ultimatum, in this context, functions as both a test of internal cohesion and a measure of external perception. The ability of the alliance to demonstrate unity under pressure is as critical to global security as its capacity to respond militarily. Cohesion also has a temporal dimension. In the face of a 30-day ultimatum, decisions must be both rapid and sustainable. Hastily imposed unity that is not underpinned by genuine agreement can be brittle and short-lived. True cohesion requires ongoing consultation, trust building, and alignment of objectives that extend beyond the immediate crisis. It is not enough to respond quickly. The alliance must respond in a way that preserves its integrity for future challenges. This requires foresight, planning, and a deep understanding of the interdependencies among member states. Finally, cohesion is inseparable from the credibility of the alliance. The deterrent power of a united front lies in the certainty that it will act collectively in defense of its members. If credibility is undermined through hesitation, public disputes, or inconsistent responses, the entire structure of collective security is weakened. The 30-day ultimatum is designed to probe this very credibility, to test whether the alliance can maintain solidarity under pressure, and to assess whether its deterrent posture is genuine or merely nominal. Maintaining cohesion in this context is not simply a matter of preserving internal harmony. It is a strategic imperative that directly impacts the ability of the alliance to protect its members and preserve global stability. In sum, cohesion is the glue that holds alliances together. It is the mechanism through which collective security is realized, through which deterrence is maintained, and through which the credibility of commitments is projected to the world. In the face of a 30-day ultimatum, cohesion is tested as never before. It must be actively managed, carefully reinforced, and consistently demonstrated across political, military, and diplomatic domains. The stakes are immense, and the consequences of failure extend far beyond the immediate crisis, shaping the strategic landscape for years to come. Cohesion is not just an internal necessity. It is the foundation upon which the very power and influence of the alliance rests.